if there is one skill that you want your child to have that's going to make them uber successful in life, I'm going to promise you that making them develop analytical thinking skills is going to make them really, really successful in life. And I want to talk about 4 things that you can do right now, every day, that's going to make them really, really successful. And I want to talk about that. But before I get to that, I want to talk about what are analytical thinking skills. What does it mean when somebody says, have my child? It doesn't actually matter whether it's your child or not. It can be you, it can be me, anyone, any person. What does it mean when you say, hey, can someone develop better analytical thinking skills? I'm going to talk about a few things. It's very simple if you really think about it, right? I mean, I have these points listed out. I'll talk about this. You have to observe a situation. You have to gather information. You have to analyze the data. You have to evaluate the different outcomes and use all of this information to solve a problem. I'm going to give a very simple example. You're going to a mall. I have 3 daughters. Happens very often. The moment you enter the mall, they say, "Dad, I'm thirsty," right? It's like, this has happened way too often in our family. But let's say you encounter the situation in your family. You're going to a mall. Your child says, your son basically says he's thirsty. You have to say, okay, what do you want to solve your thirst? I mean, you have, and let them say it. Oh, I'd love to actually have a bottle of water, but there's an ice cream shop there. There's a soda that they can actually buy. You have to basically make them say, what are the choices? They are observing the situation. What are the choices available? There's an ice cream shop there. There's a soda shop there. They can actually go get a bottle of water from another shop. So they're observing the situation. They're gathering information. They're analyzing. What are they analyzing? Is this going to quench my thirst or not? And maybe they want to actually go for a sugary drink. Maybe they want to actually get ice cream. They are evaluating those options. They're analyzing the options. They're evaluating the options, and they are now solving the problem. If I buy this, it's going to help me solve the problem. Now, the next thing is that you have to think about: are we actually helping your child detect patterns? Look at information. Can we brainstorm? Obviously, this is not happening in the mall. They are thirsty. They want to get something out very quickly. But the idea here is that the process of evaluating options available and arriving at a conclusion is actually just a very simple process of making sure your child can actually think analytically. That's exactly what we're talking about here. But at the bottom line is that if you really make your child think on their feet, in my colloquial English, if I can call it that, if you can encourage your children to think on their feet and arrive at solutions in a very balanced manner, that's essentially what it means to be, good analytical thinkers, which is data-driven, which is, not just gut feel, but it's based on some basic information. Now, at the beginning of this video, I talked about 4 things you can do. Very simple 4 things you can do, right? One of the things is that you have to encourage your child to ask questions, because first of all, whenever they ask questions, I say this to my kids all the time. If you have a question in your mind, that means that you don't have the answer to that question in your mind, which means that it's a question that needs an answer. So there are no silly questions. I mean, I would probably say no silly questions. I would probably underline it, double bold it, whatever it is. Make sure that you encourage your child to actually ask as many questions as possible. Every time they're asking a question, you will realize that they are gathering information. Now, I started with saying that they don't have the answer to a question that popped up in their head, which means that they don't have information. There is a gap in their knowledge base in their brain about something they didn't know. That's why they have a question. Now, by making them ask a question, I'm not saying how they are being given the answer to the question. That is another thing that we can talk about. But basically, if you think about what are they going through, the more questions they ask, the more information they are gathering. The more information they're gathering, they are becoming more intelligent by the minute, by the day, by the week. This information is so critical to becoming more intelligent. Now, we all know this guy. He's Albert Einstein, amazing scientist, amazing physicist. What he talks about is that he's basically saying, I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious. This is I really like what he said here. He's an amazing guy, amazingly brainy scientist. Everybody knows about him. But what he's saying is that by remaining curious means that you're curious about questions for which you didn't know answers. By remaining curious, you are basically going to get more information, and in the process, we're going to become uber intelligent in the process. Now, I talked about 4 steps. The second thing is to make sure that on a daily basis, on a regular basis, encourage your children to play games. It could be, in this picture, I have a child with a parent actually playing a Sudoku, which is like a numbers type crossword puzzle. It could be any kind of riddles, crosswords, chess, all kinds of games. Scrabble, any of those things that's going to make them think and solve problems. This has to feel like play. Making them develop analytical thinking skills should not be a chore. Hey, let's go sit down in a corner and make sure I improve your analytical thinking skills. That's not the point here. The point here is to make sure that your child, you understand that this is regular day-to-day interactions. How can we use those interactions and make your child become a deep analytical thinker by doing all of those things? Play. It's actually playtime. It's fun time. As an example, this is an example. Now, this is not black. It's actually written red, but somebody thinks about it and say, oh, that's red. No, that's actually black. That's written red ink. And this could be a nice game. Hey, can you say this in 1 minute without goofing up, without making a mistake? Can you say this in 30 seconds without making a mistake, and keep calm? This could be a very beautiful game you can play with your family. You can play with your family, or a Friday evening, any of those things. It's just a simple example. But the third thing I want to talk about is that make the idea of problem solving a daily activity. I talked about this earlier example of going to a mall, a child basically saying they're thirsty, your son is saying he's thirsty, you want to find a solution. All you're doing is identify a problem, I'm thirsty, explore the information, create ideas. There is a donut shop, there is a soda shop, there is a shop that also sells bottled water. Explore information, create ideas, select the best idea, build and test ideas. So basically the idea of going through, I have a problem, I'm looking at what available choices, analyzing, observing, and arriving at a solution, and then making sure that, hey, is having ice cream the best solution to actually quench your thirst, and having a discussion about it. And more importantly, the 4th step that I'm going to be talking about is it's not just making the decision that's important here, but make sure that they can reflect on those decisions. What do I mean by that here? Stand back. Your son takes the decision to actually go buy ice cream to quench their thirst. Let them do it. But then ask them after a few minutes, did you really feel, hey John, did you really feel that your thirst got quenched, or you just got on a sugar high? Did it actually help you quench your thirst? Maybe would water have been a better option? Maybe next time you feel thirsty, is that the decision you want to make? But make sure your child is making those decisions. Probe them, push them with questions. Make sure that they're owning that decision. Make sure that they're answering those questions you're asking them. But more importantly, make sure that you're starting with small decisions like even doing homework, managing their time, all of those things, but you want to make sure your child is the one that's actually owning those decisions and analyzing these decisions and arriving at conclusions. And don't expect fantastic improvement within 24 hours, but it's a process, and you'll actually notice that the more you do it, the better your child actually becomes, the better your engagement is, and they are processing information more cleanly and clearly as well. So the last thing I want to talk about is, these are a few extra tips. Pause and wait. Like I said, don't intervene, don't jump to conclusions, say, hey, why did you, choose ice cream? I don't think that's the right decision. Don't do that. Make them own their decisions. Make sure that you're asking open-ended questions like the way I talked about, and make sure that you're helping them develop a hypothesis. Hey, next time I feel thirsty, maybe I'll not pick ice cream, maybe I'll actually pick bottled water, maybe I'll actually bring bottled water when I actually, start going outside, and encourage thinking in new and different ways. Basically just saying that, hey, maybe next time you feel thirsty, should we be planning, hey, we're going to go to the mall, anyone who's going to feel thirsty, do you want to pick a bottle of water? Encourage those kinds of things, and make sure that you're having a dialogue and discussion with your children. But most importantly, have fun doing the whole thing, doing the whole process. At the end of the day, it's not about just an end result of making your child develop analytical thinking skills, but it's a way of life to make sure they can think on their feet. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day.